Hey guys, Darren Asbury here with Revital Outdoors, bringing another exciting podcast. Tonight we have Mr. Garrett Riles from Mississippi. Garrett got third place last year in the Pickwick BFL event, so we're very, very excited to have him on this afternoon and talk about his tournament last year and what he predicts for this year. Real quick, if you've never heard of Revital Outdoors, make sure you check out our website. Find all of our premium CBD products there, as well as our education about the products and what they're great for. We're a THC-free, made-in-America company. Also, if you're interested in joining our pro staff, you can find that information on our website as well. Make sure you're checking out all of our social media platforms. It's going to be Facebook and Instagram. And then also make sure you subscribe to our YouTube page. So if you're liking these podcasts and you want to be notified when more are coming, hit that subscribe button and you will be notified when all of our content is posting. So, but without further ado, let's go ahead and bring him in, Mr. Garrett Riles. Well, let's just go ahead and get right into it. So, last year you got third place at Pickwick. Very phenomenal finish. Pickwick is just a nostalgic bass fishing lake in America. So tell us a little bit about your tournament last year, what you did in practice and what you kind of found leading up to the tournament and why it all paid off for you.
It was cold last year, just like it is this year, and it's always pretty similar every year, same old thing. And we've always got out there out deep and caught fish out on ledges right there. They'll follow those creek channels they'll sit out there all winter long and follow that in for the spring. And we caught them on the 6XDs and Alabama rig and single swim bait. That's how we caught the majority of them, and caught a couple that day also. Our biggest fish really come on a square bill, just paralleling down the 45-degree bluff wall banks, and that's how we caught all of our fish last year doing that, and hope it'll be the same this year. I don't see it really being much different. They pretty much do the same thing every year, try to.
Good. So you talked about the ledges. You were fishing deep. Now, I know Pickwick is notorious for having grass in it. Did that factor into your game plan, the ledges with grass, or were you relating to grass at all, or how does that work this time of year?
I try not to fish the grass. And most of the time on Pickwick, it's not like as much like Gunnersville and places where the grass will kind of stay there year round. It'll be a little bit back up toward Alabama, but we stay in Mississippi and Tennessee, and it's a the deeper end of the lake, and the grass usually is blown out there by the time they do the winter drawdown and stuff. So I didn't fool with any grass. I like fishing the rocky banks and the deeper ledges where there's not as much grass.
Okay. Very interesting. So, well, tell us a little bit about your crankbait setup. You mentioned you were throwing a crankbait and an Alabama rig. So if you would, tell the listeners kind of what your setup is. Do you throw a big rod, a shorter rod, big line, lighter line? Just kind of, what's successful on Lake Pickwick for the anglers that have never been there before, maybe looking at fishing this year's BFL?
Yeah. I throw 7-11 medium heavy Lew's crankbait rod. BB1 5 1-to-1 gear ratio on my 6XV with 10-pound fluorocarbon line. And I only throw about 3 or 4 different colors, but in the early spring, late winter, I throw the chartreuse and blueback and the citrus shad. The water's usually pretty dingy, and that's the colors I use. And when it gets more into summer, I throw green gizzard and sexy shad or just a shad pattern. That's what I throw for my big crankbaits. And my smaller crankbaits, just a 7-foot medium or medium heavy, depending, and 12-pound line. And I usually throw it on like a 6-4-to-1 gear ratio, because if I'm parallel on the bank, I'm staying on the trolling motor, and it slows itself down with me headed toward it all the time.
Right. So, okay, well, there's a lot of things, a lot of buzz around the Alabama rig, especially with Lake Pickwick this time of year. It's a phenomenal bait throughout the country. Obviously, Major League Fishing, they have rules that say so for the BFL anglers, you can only have 3 hooks, 5 wires, 5 baits, and 5 blades. So, I mean, does that hurt or help your situation with throwing an Alabama rig on Pickwick, or does it really matter? You just throw what you can throw?
I throw what I can throw usually. I like it, but I hate it at the same time. It's a good bait, but it wears you out, and it gets tiresome just sitting there throwing that big thing all day long. And actually, I've done really good with it when it first come out. I think it was the second or third year it was out on Pickwick in the BFL. We got second throwing the Alabama rig, and that was my co-angler. He done good, I done good. We caught all those fish that day on Alabama rig, but I don't know. I prefer not to throw it if I can get away with it. But sometimes if it's real cold, that's usually the better bait.
You did mention throwing a single swim bait, so I'm curious, what's a good single swim bait on Pickwick this time of year? Are you throwing a hard bodied or soft bodied swim bait?
I usually always throw a soft body, and usually it's a Bastrix 6-inch Bastrix swim bait on a 3/4 or 1 ounce head, or we'll throw the Sexy Swimmer, the bigger one, with the same thing, 3/4 or 1 ounce head. And might even put an underspin head on it too sometimes.
Okay. So, well, that's really interesting. So tell us a little bit about how the fish were positioned last year on Lake Pickwick. Was it a wintertime holding pattern? Was it pre-spawn? Was it starting to warm up? Like, how were you able to locate your fish? What kind of depth, range, and what just seemed to have them triggered to allow you to catch them to end up third place?
It was pretty cold out still. It hadn't been a lot of warm weather out in that time frame, but I just found them all out on some outer creek channel bends, fishing the corners of those creek bends on 2 different spots, and then the ones on the bank were just flying down the bank, fishing 45-degree rock banks, and you'll just bump into one every once in a while with the square bill and he'd bite it. But really no rhyme or reason on the bank fishing, but the ledge fishing always was in those creek bends, leading off the river into the pockets.
Okay, awesome. So that leads me to another question. Are you catching a lot of numbers and then you just happen to find 5 good ones that allowed you to get third place, or are you just going after the 5 biggest bites you can get?
When you got out there and you got them fired up out deep, it was just like summertime. It was just every cast, bam, 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 for about 10 minutes, and it was over. Bump onto another spot and try to get them fired up somewhere. But I only really had two ledge spots. It wasn't as good as what it could be in the summertime because there's just not as many out there. But you can find the right. It's not 20 schools in the winter where it is in the summer. In the winter, it's more like 2 or 3. You just got to find them. And going down the bank, you'd catch some short ones, and then you'd bump into a good one every once in a while. Just depends.
Okay. I know you fished the ledges, but was there any brush or brush piles mixed in on those ledges as well?
No, just brush. I mean, just ledges, and you might be a stump or something down there on certain ones, but there's not a lot of brush up there because the current's so stout at times. It'll pretty much keeps it pretty clean, other than the stumps that have been there for years.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. So, going off your success last year, I know this year you'd love to walk away as the winner, back up that third place finish from last year. How do you anticipate the tournament's going to be this year? Do you think it's going to set up pretty much the same with the water level, with the weather conditions and everything? Do you anticipate guys going out deep and catching them off the ledges again, kind of like you did last year?
I don't know yet. They said the water's really low compared to normal. I haven't been much this year. Haven't had a chance to go, but they said the water's real low compared to normal, and it's cold as crap out there right now. And it's trying to sleet and snow, and so we're just gonna play it by ear. What's today though? We still got 16 more days till the tournament. So next week it's supposed to be in the 50s a couple of days. I think there'll still be some deep fish, but if it gets sunny and stays in 50-degree weather, you probably catch some going down the bank.
For sure. So, well, that sounds really cool. Well, a couple more questions just to wrap things up. What kind of weights do you anticipate for this tournament? Do you think they'll be a little heavier than last year or about the same? And then what do you think it's going to take to cash a check?
I think it should be some pretty big bags weighed in. It should be. It'll take over 20 to win. I know that. It could take closer to 27, 28. You just never know. It just depends. But it'll take a big bag to win, and to get a check, I don't know, 13 or 14 pounds probably. I don't remember what it took to get a check last year, but I figure somewhere in that ballpark. But it's been fishing kind of tough. It's not as good as it used to be up there. But
Okay. Well, then, and that kind of leads into my last question. What do you think a co-angler, change it up a little bit, what do you think a co-angler has to do to be successful on Lake Pickwick this year?
Michael Angler, actually, he won last year. He was a good guy, and I really enjoyed fishing with him. So I guess he was throwing a crankbait just like I was doing. I pulled up and I caught my limit, and he didn't have anything. And I said, "Here, take this pole." And he threw the crankbait. And I had pulled out another pole and started throwing crankbaits. We worked together, and he he caught his fish just like I did, throwing the same baits. He wasn't really doing anything much different than I was, but I think they'll be able to do the same thing. Crankbait, an Alabama rig, maybe even a shaky head a little bit or something like that.
Okay. So, well, Garrett, it's been awesome having you on our podcast. We really appreciate Revital Outdoors is honored to talk to BFL anglers like yourself. But I want to give you the floor if there's any sponsors or any friends or family you'd like to mention or anything you anticipate for this year. Now's the time for Garrett Riles to do that.
I just thank you to the guys that helped me out, Bass Cat and Mercury and Strike King and Lee's, and thank you to my folks, and thank y'all for sponsoring FLW. That's going to be good, and or Major League Fishing. But I guess that's it. I don't know. Just we're going to go out there and have fun anyway.
Absolutely. So, well, Garrett, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy work week to be on with us. We enjoyed talking to you, and you gave us a lot of great insight for Lake Pickwick. We're rooting for you this year, and we wish you all the best with the rest of your season.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Y'all wish y'all luck too, and if you need anything, holler.
All right. Well, thank you. Well, that's going to be Garrett Riles. That's going to end this podcast talking about Lake Pickwick for the upcoming BFL tournament in 2022. Again, last year, Garrett was able to get third place in 2021, so we're rooting for him this year, and we feel like he's on the right pattern and saying all the right things to have another strong tournament this year. And being from right there in Mississippi, he knows Pickwick very, very well. So from all of us at Revital Outdoors, thank you to Garrett for joining us on this podcast. Thank you to everyone who has subscribed to our page and been watching these podcasts. We're very excited to be doing this. I'm Theron Asbury. Be safe out there. God bless, and we will talk to you soon.